Welcome to Mixed Take, a World Outspoken podcast. As film, television, and entertainment are influenced by the mixing of cultures and heritages in the United States, we are here to discuss, celebrate, and represent. I'm Robert Rivera.
And I'm Doni, Alicea. In this episode, we're talking about a film recently released by Amazon Studios called A Million Miles Away. We'll be interviewing José Hernández, who the story is essentially all about, played by Michael Peña. We'll talk about that in just a second. But Rob, for those who have not yet seen the movie, can you give us a quick synopsis?
Yeah, I'm just going to go straight from the presser here. Inspired by the real-life story of NASA flight engineer José Hernández, A Million Miles Away follows him and his devoted family of proud migrant farm workers on a decades-long journey. From a rural village in Michoacán, Mexico, to the fields of San Joaquin Valley, to more than 200 miles above the Earth in the International Space Station. With the unwavering support of his hard-working parents, relatives, and teachers, José's unrelenting drive and determination culminates in the opportunity to achieve his seemingly impossible goal. Acclaimed writer and director Alejandra Márquez Abella has created a dazzling tribute to the loyalty and tenacity of the entire Hernández family, as well as anyone who dares to dream.
Listen, after watching this film, I have to say it is inspirational, motivational, and above all of the Eagles, sensational. I haven't cried in a film. I was telling Rob before we interviewed José, I haven't cried in a film in a while, and this one was such a tearjerker. Just the having to overcome certain things, the trials and the tenacity that not just he had, but those around him to encourage him and to sacrifice for the dream that he had. I thought was just awesome. So it is starring Michael Peña. We said that at the top of the show, who is a kid from Chicago.
That's right, Chi-Town.
In doing the research for this show, learning that Michael Peña is from Chicago. So side, what's up? Let's go. So you might know Michael Peña from movies like Crash or Chips or even shows like Jack Ryan, but he is just an all-star, or an Ant-Man, and Ant-Man 2.
Ant-Man. I think of him, End of Watch, I think is the first time that
Yeah.
really saw him, but yeah.
Yeah, he's such a good actor. Absolutely love him. And
Awesome.
In this role, he does not disappoint. So, without further ado, is it time to introduce or to take it away to the...
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without further ado, here's our interview with José Hernández. Hi, José. My name is Doni, and...
Yeah, my name is Robert.
All right. How you guys doing? Robert, Doni, happy to be here with you guys this morning.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're with a podcast called Mixed Take. We're both located in Chicago, and our podcast pretty much centers around representation in film and shows and all the stories that come out. And so it was really just such a wonderful experience to be invited into your story and to be able to pre-screen A Million Miles Away and just to learn a little bit more about you, about the stars, about you reaching for them quite literally. So we're so excited to talk with you today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here, and I hope you enjoyed the movie because it was a great labor of love, and I'll tell you, Prime Video did a great job in portraying my life story.
Oh, that's awesome. Whenever people say who'd play you in a movie, you come up with all these scenarios in your head. Which actor would fit you best? Michael Peña was chosen for this role to portray you. Where did he get it right? What part did you ever watch him and say, yes, he nailed me exactly in that scene or that part?
I think throughout the film, he did he did a very accurate representation of my character, of my personality. He spent some time with me. It was during the pandemic, so all of it was via Zoom. But he was able to get basically my personality down because I'm a kind of like a serious person, but I also joke around a lot, and I have a pretty good sense of humor, and I think he did a good job at portraying that, and he got my character right. But I think the other thing where he got it right is that, and I wanted to make sure that we reflected it on the film, is that we all have doubts about ourselves, about our capabilities, and do we belong here or don't we? And it's these demons that sometimes keep us down. And he did a great job at demonstrating that, hey, they do exist, but he was able to overcome it and reach his goal. And that certainly was the case for me.
Man, that's so awesome. He was spot on. So did Michael Peña do a better Jose than you? Who did it better?
I was on the set. I was on the set one day, and we were just shooting the bull with him. And I said, "Hey, Michael, I just want to let you know." He says, "What's that, Jose?" I said, "You're a great actor." He said, "Oh, thank you." And his chest pumped up and all that. I said, "But man, I'm so much cuter than you, dude." I think the movie would have been a little better, but no. He's a great actor. Mi respetos. He's from Chicago too. He's from your area.
He is.
Yep. Yeah. We were just talking about that.
They should have done the deep fake, and just have your face the entire movie. I agree with you.
No, he's a good guy. He's a great guy. I love him. He's great.
That's awesome. So if we can dig into the movie a little bit and some of the things, kind of the themes that really stood out to us, especially for the listeners and the viewers for our podcast. So one element that is really common to most immigrant or migrant stories is assimilation. And so throughout the story, there's a couple decisions that you made to kind of assimilate. You moved from wearing like the cholo, like the button up, to the cardigan, or at least in the films.
Pendleton, we call them Pendletons.
Pendleton. Pendleton?
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Pendleton?
Yeah, the Pendleton shirts, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then you moved from eating enchiladas to sandwiches, and there are a couple of little. Yeah, I know, you're like, this lettuce and bread, this is not doing it. And then moving from listening to like banda type of music over to like rock. So why those choices? If you were to do it all over again, would you do the same? Kind of talk to us about this assimilation piece to your story.
Right. Well, it wasn't like my cousin suggested. I'm forgetting where I was coming from. I think it was more of the case of, you acknowledge that you're growing up and you're living in a bicultural environment. And so the way I saw it was that I can take the best of both cultures. And that's what defines me, José Hernández. I would never say, oh, no soy mexicano, no soy Mexican American. I would never say that. I was always very proud of my heritage. But I also realized that, hey, this 64 Chevy Impala, it's a gas guzzler, and I'm driving 50 miles each day to work and back and forth. And maybe I should get a smaller car. And so that's what I did. And a reliable car that doesn't leave me broken down on the road too. And so those type of things, those type of decisions that I made, but never forgetting our culture, because our cultura is so beautiful that you can draw from it to get not only strength, but make yourself more viable in certain situations.
I love that. Standing in the margin, there's different worlds that we're a part of, that we're living in and navigating our way and making it our own. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. The story is inspirational, obviously, not just because of the odds that you conquered, but because of who you are. And I think it speaks a lot to migrants. This country is filled with migrants, people who are just trying to make it. And especially in the Latino culture, you've become, in a sense, an inspiration to others. The movie highlights 5 ingredients to success. Can I ask you a little bit about those ingredients? Were those ingredients something that you provided to them, or was that something that the movie, after analyzing your life, kind of came up with? And how do those ingredients?
No. That's I've been living with those ingredients since 10 years old. You know, I was 10 years old when I saw the very last Apollo mission, and I told my papa, I said, Papi, I want to be an astronaut. He takes me to the kitchen, sits me down. I thought I was in trouble, but he crosses his hands and said, A ver, dime, why do you want to be an astronaut? And I just regurgitated everything Walter Cronkite, the reporter, said that day. The moon was 250,000 miles away. This was the last Apollo mission, the Apollo era. They were going to build a new space vehicle. And I told my dad, I want to be part of it. And he, who only has a third grade education, and we still have him with us, 86-year-old, pero healthy. He, who only has a third grade education, had the wisdom to do two things. First, he empowered me in believing that I could be an astronaut. Me dijo, sí puedes lograrlo, hijo. You can do it. He said, but if you want to do it, sigue estos 5 pasos. I said, what are they, Pops? He said, define your purpose in life, 1. Second, recognize how far you are from that goal. Third, draw yourself a roadmap so you know how to get there. Fourth, prepare yourself according to the el reto, the challenge you picked. In fifth, échale ganas. And then that's when I add the 6th one, which is perseverance, which is never give up on yourselves. And if you read my book, Reaching for the Stars, that's the standard, that's the central message I have in my book, Reaching for the Stars. I have a children's book, The Boy Who Touched the Stars, bilingual, that also has that recipe. So it's very important in my life. And every time I get out, I try to preach that because I think that's a good tool people can use.
Wow. I think that makes the movie a little bit more meaningful for me to know that it's structured around your actual goals and ingredients.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
So where do you find yourself now? Is there a particular goal in that, or a particular step that you're in, or ingredient rather?
Well, you know, it's like mi papa said, right? You know, you could take a kid away from the farm, but not the farm away from the kid. After leaving NASA, I made a tough decision that I wanted to raise my kids because NASA just takes too much time in training, and we were gonna. They wanted me to go on a Russian rocket, train for 3 years, and then go up for 6 months, and then go on the road for 6 months. For the next 4 years, I was going to be gone out of my house a little over 80% of the time, and that was just too much. And so I, as Latinos, I have 5 kids, and they were reaching their adolescent age. So I decided to come back home. And that's when I wrote my books. That's when I started going on the motivational circuit, speaking circuit, and then the movie opportunity came. But my true calling was, I found this vineyard that was for sale, and I bought it. And I told my dad the only way I would buy it if he would help me run it, manage it, because I know how to pick grapes, but I didn't know how to manage. And my dad does. He says, "Claro que sí, hijo." And I didn't stop there. Now we make our own wine. I have Tierra Luna Cellars wine, and so this wine tastes out of this world. Best one made by an astronaut. So it's kind of coming full circle. It's kind of coming full circle. Coming back to your roots.
Congratulations. Now, speaking of family and sacrifice and all the help that comes with being a Latino and being so close knit with our families, there's 2 women for me that stood out in the film that seemed instrumental, at least in the story that we saw. And those 2 women were Miss Young and your wife, Adela. Can you talk to us about, kind of how they encouraged you, supported you, what the movie got right, and maybe a detail or 2 that the movie didn't include that you wish was in there?
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my mom because she was very instrumental early on in my career. I mean, she in my education process, she's the one that after every day of school would sit us down in the kitchen, give us sopita con tortillas, but she would not let us get up until our homework was done. So she was kind of like the enforcer at home, and she's the one that instilled those great study habits that we developed that we would need in high school and college. So thanks to her, we were able to do that. Miss Young, absolutely. She by just making a simple trip home and convincing my parents that we needed to stay in one place to get a good education, she changed the trajectory of a whole familia, And yes, we sought her out, and yes, she sat next to my parents when I blasted off into space. So all that part is true. And then, later in my career, the pillar in our familia era mi esposa, Adelita. She was, gave me 100% support, especially when I was ready to throw in the towel after that sixth rejection. She asked a very profound question that I hadn't thought of asking myself. She said, "No sé, I don't know what they have," meaning the people that got selected, and what they have that you don't have. And I told myself, I don't know either. Maybe I should find out. And that's when I became a pilot, scuba diver, learned a third language, and made myself more competitive. So yeah, all these ladies, very, very instrumental in my life. That's why I say this is a story of success of not an individual, pero una familia y una comunidad. The community helped a lot too.
No, that's awesome. I think that phrase, tenacity is a superpower, really sums up the journey. And if anything, I think your story shows with hard work and you don't let up, you can accomplish a whole lot.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole message. And that's why I'm so happy we got this made into a movie, because it's going to be released September 15th to over 240 countries at once in multiple languages. And so now it's not motivating thousands or tens of thousands. Now we're going to be motivating hundreds of millions of people because they're going to be seeing the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are so many common themes amongst individuals moving to different places, different countries, learning new languages, learning how to navigate the politics, the socioeconomics, the education pieces for their families and all. So yours isn't just a story that is common to us. It's a worldwide story of learning how to navigate new waters and change and growing as a family and being successful and shooting for the stars, literally.
Yes, it resonates with many people. And so that's why I think people are going to find it so attractive, because they're going to see a little of themselves in that movie. And hopefully they walk away with some tools that would say, okay, this is how I'm going to apply myself from now on.
Awesome. So if there's one last thing you'd like to say to our listeners, is there anything that you would like to share?
I would just say que se vale soñar en grande. I say it's okay to dream big as long as you're willing to put in the work to convert that dream into reality and use that 6-ingredient recipe. And I'll tell you, I'll give you the same promise my dad gave me. You too can reach for your own stars.
Well, I love that the story is accessible for my whole family. I think it's going to be an inspiration to so many people. Thank you for allowing that story to be told. And it's a privilege and an honor to meet you.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And one more thing for me is right before we came in this room, I was telling Rob, I haven't cried during a movie in so long. And oh my goodness, there were tearjerker moments for me all throughout the film. It was, again, just so inspirational, so beautiful. So thank you for allowing us into your life, your journey, and being bold and brave enough to share your story with us. So thank you.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. So glad you enjoyed it. And hopefully Rob enjoyed it as well, because that's what we were trying to do is really touch the human spirit. And I've watched it several times and I still tear up because it is like this, and you have those, because people can relate to it, and so I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Jose. Great to meet you.
Un abrazo.
Un abrazo también.
What an awesome interview.
That was an amazing interview.
I think interviewing Jose Hernandez was a lot like sitting down with like one of my tios and just asking questions about his life and like where he's been and what he's been through and what he's proud of and all that good stuff. What are your like quick takeaways from the interview?
Yeah, inspiring. What I love about him is that he's a person that wants to share knowledge. Yeah. He wants to pass on what he's learned with the next generation. Mm-hmm. So I appreciated that. That's right off the bat, he's a teacher.
Yeah. And like a motivator. he's like, if I could do it, you could do it. Like, you dream big, dream for the stars, and just put in the work. Like, he's very much a if I can do it, you can do it type of guy.
No, definitely. Definitely.
So from that interview, and even from the film, just the story of a migrant family coming to the States and one of the kids in the family shooting for the stars, what are some takeaways from the film, and then what changes in our country related to immigration do you think need to be made?
Sure. You know, the one thing that's refreshing, there have been many biopics, and normally when we watch a biopic, we start Googling the you know, some of the facts of the movie. Are these correct? If not, there's been recent controversy. It doesn't take away from whether the movie is good and entertaining, but what I really appreciated after talking to Jose is to learn that a lot of this movie is based on, not just based on his life, but based on principles that that he grew up learning, like his grandfather. So the movie is structured with these ingredients. They kind of work as chapters throughout the film, to learn that those ingredients were things that his grandfather, did he say?
His dad.
Oh, his father had taught him. And so that was refreshing to know this is, they kind of dig deep into his life, and I know it's based on the book that he wrote, but love that they kept that. Yeah,
and that his dad had 5 ingredients, and then he added a 6th ingredient.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, and hopefully his kids add or change. You know, like you get a recipe, and then you put in your own like sofrito or adobo, you know, to make it your own.
Yeah.
That's him.
You know what I also appreciated is that he understands that culture is always adapting. It's always changing, and living in the United States, living in Mexico, both are formative in his life. He doesn't deny either, embraces both. And I think it goes along with what you were saying, adding that other ingredient is important. And as we talk about the diaspora around the world adjusting, you know, kind of to their context, that's an important thing. I know we fight to keep a lot of our culture, and we should.
Yeah.
But also understanding that sometimes things evolve in our culture, and just kind of how he's making it his own. As far as immigration and things like that, it just proves, right, that we often think of immigration in terms of a group of people, the immigrant as kind of this faceless person, and they're here for our jobs, they're here, whatever the negative connotation is. But this movie, I think, shows us that perhaps there's a lot the immigrant has to offer. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's a lot of rambling, but.
You know, one of the things that I wished Jose had talked a little bit more about was the struggle in getting to the point of like, no, I'm both. Because in the film, at least how they represent it, is there was an intentionality with the choices that Jose Hernandez was making, what he was wearing, the music he was listening to, even what he was eating at lunch alongside of his colleagues to kind of fit in. And so I wished he had talked just a little bit more about how tough it is to get to the point of accepting, no, I'm this and I'm this. I'm trailblazing and building my own thing, because sometimes when you get to a new place, the pendulum might swing, you know, all the way to the other side. And at some point it comes to the middle, but getting to that point is often a huge labor of sacrifice and love and tears and time and wrestling with who am I. At least that was the truth for me.
Yeah, in all fairness, this was a 15-minute interview.
True,
you know?
True. Yes.
He squeezed in a lot.
Yeah.
The movie fleshes that out a little bit more, but I'm sure his book.
Yeah. Well, you know, and we've talked about this in past episodes, just for like our own lives. So particularly for me, when I went to college, I didn't realize I was brown. I was a Latina until I got to college. Because in high school, I hung around with like a very diverse group of people, but there were a lot of Latinos in the high school that I went to. When I came to college, however, an 85-90% white campus, I stood out like a sore thumb. And I was like, oh my goodness, growing up, I was never really accepted as a Latina because I didn't speak Spanish. And so, you know, amongst Latinos, they're like, oh, you don't speak Spanish, you're not Hispanic, you're a little white girl. And so I was like, okay, fine, then I guess I'm a white girl. Well, then I came to college and I was like, oh my goodness, I am not a white girl. So what is it about my culture outside of language that makes me a Latina? And so for the first time, I really have to dig into, okay, who am I? And, you know, what are the things that about me that make me me? And, you know, what is it about that comes from my culture, that comes from my upbringing, that comes from being a Chicagoan, being a Northsider, being a public school kid, like being a Christian. So what are, you know, what facets of what, you know, aspects make me me, and why am I so different? So again, it was, you know, a couple of years really of digging in to figure out who I am. And I'm sure Jose Hernandez had a similar journey, if you will.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Say more.
I mean, just everything that you said, I co-sign for my own experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm still on that journey, trying to understand how I fit in exactly. Where do I fit in? Recognizing I'm not loved, you know, wholeheartedly by any particular group, but being okay with that. And and just trying to embrace different parts of different cultures that I've been exposed to, and then passing that on to like my children and helping them understand why we hang out to certain traditions or different foods or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I will say there were even moments when I'm half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. Around certain people, I felt like I had to choose one. So if I was around Mexicans, I had to be ultra Mexican. And if I was around Puerto Ricans, I had to be more Puerto Rican. And if I was around white people, I had to kind of hush both of those and not laugh as loud or clap as loud or talk as loud.
Oh no.
So it was, it was always like a
like
dance.
A ticking time bomb if you can't be loud.
Exactly. I was like, oh Lord. So it was always like a, kind of you're trying to fit in and choose which you to be until you finally just start. You're like, this is me. I am Mexican. I am Puerto Rican. I am American. I am a Chicagoan. I am a woman. I am, I am all of these things. Just let me be me and accept me or don't. That's okay. I'm not for everybody, but just like.
Well, it sounds like you're getting ready to write some song lyrics there.
Really?
Yeah.
Was I flowy? Okay.
There you go.
So how do you feel about, can we talk just a little bit about the migrant worker history? I've done a little research.
Yes, please, Donnie.
So
inform us.
If you guys will indulge me. And some of these things, okay, so there's obviously America, right? We came, not we. There were individuals.
Maybe we.
1492. I know. Right
Some
now,
of we.
like, oh no. Because I guess, we do have Spanish heritage. So 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? He finds what he thinks is India, lands in America. A couple hundred years later, people start to migrate here, immigrants. So what's very interesting is in the 1600s, obviously, most immigrants to the United States were from Europe. So many British immigrants settled in New England. Dutch immigrants settled in New York. Swedes in Delaware. Spaniards in Florida. Some came for religious freedom. Others were just looking to make paper. Can't be mad at that. You want, the best opportunity for you and your family. Fast forward to close to the 1800s, so 1790. Congress passes the first law about who should be granted U.S. citizenship. Follow me. Only white people that have been here 2 years or more. So if you're not white, you have no claim to citizenship in this country. People that were here long before them with brown skin, aka Native Americans, would not be allowed to apply to be citizens in their country. This is wild to me. 1790. From the 1820 to 1860, about a third of all immigrants were Irish, and then many others were German. So the rhetoric that we get right now about immigration is just brown people, particularly Mexicans, with our former president all about building a wall and blah, 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 and Mexico this and that. The first immigrants to this country were not brown, were not black, were white. I mean, and I guess you can make the argument for black immigrants coming to this country, but they came against their own will.
Right,
they were enslaved. So we'll talk those that volitionally wanted to come. Okay, 1820 to 1860.
Yeah, this is less about immigration and more about the group of people coming.
Yeah, kind of.
This is less about people are coming. It's who is actually trying to get into this country that has been claimed, as you mentioned before.
Absolutely. So, so 1880 to the 1920s, roughly 200 million immigrants entered into the country. Many were Italians and Jews. 1882, interestingly, the Chinese Exclusion Act bars Chinese immigrants from entering the United States. So this is one of the kind of first, outside of the 1790s, like only white people can be citizens here, this is the first to exclude a particular group of individuals like that. And then we'll see kind of more of that along the way. 1907, there's an influx of Japanese workers, and they say that they're, basically taking white people's jobs. And so they sign a gentleman's agreement that says from Japan, only certain individuals who are highly skilled can come to the United States. 1910, essentially 3/4 of New York's population are immigrants or first-generation Americans. This is to me, this is just such a fascinating, because this is, 1600. We're in 2023, so 400-ish years of history, really 200 years of kind of this really specific, and even more specifically, 100 years of kind of this segregated type of immigrant that the U.S. government wants to see come into the United States. So if you're white, it's like, pretty much cool, our doors are open to you. But if you're Chinese, if you're Japanese, and the rhetoric now, if you're Hispanic, it's like, let's close the doors, let's build the walls against these people. I'm going to fast forward. There's a bunch of stuff in here, but one thing that I found interesting was during World War II, the United States, there were labor shortages, obviously, because men are going off to war. So with these labor shortages, the United States reaches out to Mexico and they say, hey, let's build a program to have workers, migrant workers, come in and pick our fields, take care of our crops. People got to eat, people got to farm, so let's do the thing. So this is called the Bracero program. Google this. It's fascinating. What the program essentially did was allowed Mexican workers to come in 6 months at a time if they had a particular job and essentially work the fields. This was enacted in 1942 and went until 1964, so 22 years.
Wow.
Over 2 decades, these people are getting used to this lifestyle. This is, and it was listed as temporary work.
I see where you're going.
But once you're 22 years in, this is like, okay, our economy starts to depend on these workers, and these workers start to depend on our economy, and they're working kind of hand in hand. Well, then there's mistreatment of these laborers, and individuals like Cesar Chavez rise, and they start to kind of form, just so there's no mistreatment and people are getting paid and working in safe environments and that kind of thing. Fast forward, there's, different immigrants that continue to come in, but blazing the way of like making sure that these migrant workers are fairly paid and working in good conditions, this really surfaces. So you have this bracero program that says it's cool, and then the program ends in 1964, but you just can't turn it off because, again, there's this, we're relying on one another. So how do we move forward? And again, this rhetoric, and I keep saying this word rhetoric because it really is this, like, how dare these immigrants come into this country and take our jobs and blah, blah, blah. And like you said earlier, it's not about individuals taking. Immigrants are coming here to give. Roughly 1 in 4 physicians in the United States is an international or foreign trained expert. And so we're coming up on a huge physician shortage. We're going to need more and more international physicians to fill the void. And that's just one profession out of many, many professions where we need skilled individuals to come. So immigrants have so much to offer. Our families can say that firsthand. We aren't native to, I guess a quarter of me is, according to 23andMe. I am Indigenous American. But the other part, Spaniard and from Portugal and, a bunch of other places. So we're all kind of, in some way or another visitors here, unless you're Native American.
No, this is very true. Wow.
That was a mouthful.
Well, in that context, this is José Hernández's background.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming from this heritage of stereotypes, and he's got an uphill climb.
Mm-hmm.
He's got everything working against him. And when I say stereotypes, he applied for that position in NASA for I forget how many times. Do you remember the number?
I think it was 12 or 13.
Yeah, there was a bunch. And it's hard not to wonder. I know that let me first of all say his credentials weren't there, but nobody was stepping in and helping him and say, listen, if this is what you want to do, this is what you got to do, until the one guy did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He took that to heart. He starts learning new languages, scuba diving, all these different things, and worked hard. And but you recognize that he didn't have this path kind of paved for him.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was training him or empowering him to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody just let it out, like, this is what you need to do. And self-motivation, he did it,
mm-hmm.
which is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. The intrinsic desire to, accomplish this goal, this dream that he had was just outstanding.
What a gift to his family,
mm-hmm.
to Latinos,
mm-hmm.
to the migrant individual coming into this country from whichever country.
Yeah. What I really appreciate about Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, is the focused attention that Black people have on Black success. And I want there to be more of that for Latino success, for us to intentionally tell stories like this, because people like us are literally reaching for the stars and attaining them. Like José Hernández is like, I want to be an astronaut. In the film, you see the first time he tells his girlfriend, she laughs, and it's like, man, if more of us had laughable goals, how awesome that would be for people to be like, ha ha ha, no way, and then it's like, oh, you're serious? Okay, cool, that's awesome. Any other thoughts that you want to share?
My laughable goal is that
oh yeah, that's a good question. What's your laughable goal?
we go viral.
Why you make me laugh at that one?
We have double-digit listenership.
Double-digit? We need that 6-figure listenership, that 7-figure
right.
listenership.
Exactly. Just jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Maybe if I scuba dived a little bit more, I would have a stronger voice. And
oh, my.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's time to press pause and reflect on just any final thing that has, kind of stands out to you. So, Rob, any takeaways from this film or conversation with José Hernández?
I would say don't let discouragement defeat you. And people are going to constantly undermine you, or what's the right word? It's not undermine. It's more like they don't expect, maybe doubt. I know that this struck you, so can you elaborate a little bit on the janitor scene?
Oh yeah. So there's really no spoilers that we can give because it's just really somebody's life and it's awesome. But in one scene, there's Michael Peña. He shows up, or played by Michael Peña, but José Hernández shows up for his first day of work, and he's an engineer. And he goes up to the receptionist because he's, just has some questions. And he asks whatever his question is, where's their bathroom or something like that. And she assumes that he's the janitor. So she starts pulling out all the janitor things. Here's the keys, and here's the this and the that. And when you get a chance, change this light bulb. Oh, he was having a light bulb problem in his office. Change this and that. And it wasn't until days later that he was like, I'm actually not the janitor. I'm one of the engineers here. But
she wasn't mean.
Mm-mm.
She just wasn't listening to him.
And she was assumptive of,
exactly.
Oh, if you're brown and you're here,
exactly.
You must be here to clean the toilets.
Right. So it wasn't malicious. She just could not wrap her head around a Latino engineer.
Yes, exactly. I think brown people, women in positions of leadership often have the same experience. It's like, you must not be here to do X, Y, or Z. And it's like, no, I'm here for the director's seat or, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's not even a malicious, intentional, whatever. It's just, I don't know, maybe ignorance.
That's kind of scarier, isn't it?
Kind of.
Where people don't even recognize that they have these biases.
Oh my word, absolutely.
So they're not mean, but if you don't recognize you have this bias, how can you correct it? At least when you have hate in your heart, you know it.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're a little more. Yeah, but it's the microaggressions.
There you go.
It's like the small things that you don't even realize.
There you go. Yep. Exactly.
Oh, and then we get used to them.
Yep.
So we don't even see them. It's like, oh yeah, they don't really see me in this or see us in this role. So whatever, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal.
How about you? Any other takeaways?
I would just my encouragement to anybody listening or watching, go watch this film, A Million Miles Away, produced by Amazon Studios. What a wonderful story.
Yeah, Amazon Prime. If you have Prime Video, September 15th, it's on.
Yeah, such a good film, wonderful story. I did not expect to be as impacted by the life and storytelling, the life of José Hernández and the storytelling of director Alejandra Márquez Abella. Alejandra, thank you for what a wonderful work of art that you've presented to us. I can identify, not just me, many can identify with this story, with the struggle, with hopefully the triumph. Let's make Rob's laughable goal come true and get this podcast. So, I mean, not that even really matters, but what matters is just the awareness that we hope to spotlight. We hope to just encourage this more awesome stories of Black, Brown, Asian, Pacific Islanders. This is where we press stop, but have no fear, we will press that play button again soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mixed Take. Join us next time as we continue the journey into the far stretches of the galaxy, what do astronauts go to? The space station, all kinds of fun, otherworldly. The moon. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcast or wherever you tune in. Also, head over to worldoutspoken.com, a site preparing the Mestizo Church for cultural change, where you'll find information on consulting services, thought-provoking blog posts, and other podcasts such as The Feature, Questions from the Pew, La Ventanita, The Mestizo Podcast, the show for the mixed people of the mixed church. Also, head over to worldoutspoken.com, order some cool merch like a shirt, sticker, water bottle, lots of other cool things.
Also, follow us on Insta at Mixed Take. And then, what's the one that my grandma's on again? Facebook. We're also on Facebook. My grandmother does not have a Facebook account.
No.
You can also...
But our moms do.
Yeah. There are grandmas on Facebook.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. You can... and young people, too. I think there's some young people.
There's a couple.
Yeah. So, they're probably... You know what? Those are probably... what are those accounts called? They're kind of hijacked and...
Oh, yeah.
Not like burners, but like...
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. It's like what you want your parents
Yeah, beware.
to
If
see.
you say young person on Facebook, beware.
I thought the same thing.
Are those real young people?
Well, no. I was like, what is this account? Why do they have Facebook?
They're spying on their parents. It's backwards. It's full circle.
I like that.
Well, you can also follow me on Twitter or X. What's it called? Is it whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever you would like to call it, at Rob Riv, and follow Donnie at Donnie Jack. That's DONIJAC.
And how do you spell Rob Riv?
Rob Riv. ROBRIV.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
That's an easy one, though.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I think
Rob
so.
Riv. Yeah, probably, actually.
Special thanks to our producer, Rich Hurtado.
What?
Also to Ricky Padilla and the World Outspoken crew. We
yes,
hope...
sir. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. Yes. Salute.
Salute.
We hope you join us again as we continue to dive into the nerdy part of the culture influencing entertainment. Until next time, cut.
It's a wrap.